Released by Square Enix in 2015 on the Nintendo 3DS, Bravely Second End Layer would be the direct sequel to Bravely Default. Directed by Kensuke Nakahara, who directed the first game, and written by Tomoyo Asano, who produced both this game and the original, the game would continue events 2.5 years later after the original installment. For story, the game features a knight named Yu, a warrior from the moon named Magnolia that we saw previewed at the end of the first game, and returning are Tiz and Idia from the first game. For progression, things are essentially unchanged from the first game. We're using the same systems for levels, gear, and jobs, though there are now 30 distinct jobs. For gameplay, the game brings back the same battle system, though instead of rewarding consecutive 1-round KO victories with random encounters, any battle with a 1-round KO has the option of leading directly into a follow-up battle with no break, which may be chained for enhanced rewards. Most of the original dungeon, maps, and musical tracks are revisited here, though new locations, enemies, music, and dungeons are also introduced, expanding the world of Luxendark. The game was previewed at the end of the first game and demoed with a standalone chapter named The Ballad of the Three Cavaliers. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game immediately begins in conflict as Kaiser Oblivion, leader of the Glands Empire, crashes a peace treaty signing between the Crystal Orthodoxies' Pope Agnes and the Duchy of Eternia's Grand Marshal Brave. Anna, a Crystal Fairy accompanying Kaiser Oblivion, expresses their intent to crush both powers on the eve of their assumed victory. To aid the Grand Marshal is the Dark Knight Alternus, and by Agnes' side is Eugenie Olja, Cavalier and leader of her Crystal Guard. Oblivion's power is overwhelming, and as Agnes attempts to summon otherworldly aid with her pendant, Oblivion quickly shatters the crystal. With the group utterly defeated, Oblivion picks up Agnes and leaves the rest to their wounds. The next thing he knows, Yu wakes up in the bedroom of his manor, and has been out for 7 days recovering from near-fatal wounds. Blaming himself for his failure to protect his ward, he finds a fragment of Agnes' pendant in his possession, and hurries to raise the forces of the other Crystal Guard. Finding the sanctum ransacked, he sees the Bishop Nikolai and the Fencer Jan, and learn almost the entire Crystal Guard was also wiped out. Nikolai directs his attention outside where the Kaiser's air fortress, the Skyhold, is currently besieging Eternia now. Undeterred, Yu vows to storm the Skyhold and rescue the Pope, and reluctantly, Jan and Nikolai opt to help him, bonded as their roles with the Three Cavaliers. With the remainder of the Crystal Guard as an advanced unit, their plan is to sneak aboard the Skyhold. Passing by a curiously familiar adventure and facing down the threats of the woods, they see the advance guard and Nikolai breaks off to tend to the wounded. As they pitch camp, Yu reflects on his school days with his friend Jan, where Yu aspired to be a scholar and was often bullied because of his family's nobility. Thanks to training with Jan, the two of them quickly rose to being the top swordsman in the school. After this, Jan offers to take the first shift as Yu sleeps, though he's waken up by screams. Investigating, he's horrified to see Jan finished killing the rest of the Crystal Guard himself, confessing now to have always been a spy for the Empire planted here. He offers Yu a chance to defect, but Yu refuses to budge as Jan now moves to kill him. Just then, the voice of Agnes comes in through the crystal shard on his person, urging him to flee. After escaping via a river, Yu now hurries to tell Nikolai about Jan, only to see the Empire has attacked and killed everyone else inside the sanctum. Nikolai also urges Yu to give up on his pursuit of the Empire and flee before collapsing. Meanwhile, the Kaiser is keeping tabs on Jan through Anna, noting that Yu specifically still lives. He then sends Dark Vestal Bella to deal with Yu, and delegates occupation of Eternia to Kahulin, a charioteer. On the road again, Yu is still determined to save Pope Agnes, alone or not. By returning to the woods where the Crystal Guard fell, he is now surrounded by the haunting spirits of the dead. Terrified of ghosts, he is soon met by Bella, but is too scared to fight back. Suddenly, he's chastised by the voice of a girl who leaps out to save him, Knight Captain of Eternia, Idia from the first game. Bolstered, Yu stands to fight, and together they defeat Bella and gain the Wizard Asterisk. Yu is starstruck at meeting Idia, though Idia doesn't think much of being a former hero of late. She explains she was actually guided here by an astrologer who conveyed Yu's mission to save Agnes and his location, so naturally she wants to join the endeavor. As they leave the forest, the connection to Agnes opens up, who is glad to see Idia once again. Idia now directs Yu back to Eternia, where she introduces him to the astrologer that led her to him, and he explains that in order to stem the impending darkness he foresees, they must now awaken Tiz, who has actually been asleep for the past 2 years since the end of the first game. In his comatose state, Tiz's body is an empty vessel, and until they can reunite him with his soul, the astrologer provides them with a soul stone that can fill Tiz with the energy of the celestial realm for now. Idia is more than willing to take a chance this will work for her friend, and though Tiz is in Eternian Central Command, it is currently occupied by the Empire. Choosing to sneak in from the side, they rest in Gravemark Village, where Yu notes a magnolia tree, and like a scholar, its reported effects. That night, a crash nearby wakes up Yu, who sees a strange wrecked ship. Within, he finds an unconscious girl, and thinking of the magnolia outside, he uses its strong scent to wake her up. Speaking in French, a moonspeak unknown to Yu, it turns out she speaks his language as well. She is taken aback by his presentation of a flower to her and weeps tears of joy, which surprises Yu in turn. Yu introduces himself, and she hesitates before revealing her name to be Magnolia, like the flower. She explains she's from the moon, and despite their disbelief, is here on their world since her home was destroyed, and she is here to seek vengeance on her enemy within the Skyhold. Since their destination is the same, and she insists on traveling with Yu, they welcome her aboard the team. Magnolia then introduces them to a special hourglass that allows them to use the Bravely Second maneuver, which stops time for all but the party, gaining a massive but brief advantage. Bella and Kuhulan bar their way again, but with Magnolia proving a strong companion, they put down the pair and gain the charioteer Asterisk. Despite Yu not understanding Magnolia's obvious infatuation with him, they enter Central Command and use the Soul Stone on Tiz. As they wait in Idia's room for the Soul Stone to work, Magnolia goes to fetch Tiz in events we see from the original Bravely Second trailer. Tiz indeed wakes up as if from a long slumber, as Idia is overjoyed to see him alive again, and Yu is humbled to meet his hero. Agnes greets him with happy tears as well, as Tiz is now focused on saving Agnes too. As they reach the top of Central Command, they're about to board the Skyhold, with Jan and Nikolai, who faked his death and was also a mole for the Empire, present themselves to bar Yu's path. Yu is forced to leave all his life and allegiances behind as he faces down the men he once thought of as brothers, and in turn gains their fencer and bishop asterisks. Yu still refuses to kill them, allowing them to retreat, though the Skyhold now gets away as well. As the new chapter in their adventure begins, they use the pendant and Agnes' observations to determine the Skyhold is heading for the land of Harina down south, but there is an ocean between them. Just then, they're met by Idia's swordmaster Kami Izumi, who has survived since the last game, as he offers them his boat and boasts of his new cat companion. Magnolia takes note of Yu's home life as they learn Yu originally aspired to be a scholar as well. Meanwhile, the Kaiser meets with Jan and Nikolai to move their plans of finding a compass, while mentioning an assassin sent after Yu. As Yu and crew sail to Harina on Kami Izumi's dinghy, they now encounter a strange little girl dressed as a cat, who notes the cat in Kami Izumi's arms. The girl takes her leave as the cat suddenly becomes enraged and slashes the swordsman deeply. Concerned, Yu directs them to All Campus nearby, the City of Learning, as it turns out he's an alumnus of the esteemed university. As they brush past some of the students, Yu mentions how everyone is assigned a star ranking representing the status in the school, and ranking the more stars per higher ranking, resulting in literal class discrimination. Asking around, they learn the Skyhold was spotted recently, and Yu runs into an old underclassman named Rifa who always admired him, much to Magnolia's annoyance. Rifa mentions her research on balls, powerful lords of monsters, and a word that Magnolia recognizes. She mentions a sleeping one that crashed down a year ago that the researchers are studying, and Magnolia quickly insists on a detour to see the ball. Along the way, they see Jackal the Thief and Red Mage DeRosa again, who are in dispute over whether to use the magical source of water to sustain the people of the desert, or use it for an experimental new clean energy source and leave it to Idia to choose. As they approach the crater with the ball, Magnolia gets a call in her unique wristband communicator, as she is contacted by her commander on the moon, who gets an update on her situation, and is alerted that a ball is headed her way now from the moon. Revealing her profession to be a ball buster, Magnolia leads the way against busting the giant ball within the party. After its defeat, she repeats how her people on the moon have been fighting balls for centuries, protecting Luxemdark from this threat all this time. However, one immeasurably stronger than the others emerged and wiped out nearly everyone on the moon. Her and her commander gave chase as it moved from the moon to Luxemdark, but her ship crashed, leading her to meeting the party now. She recognizes the miasma here in this crater as the same one from the one she was chasing, which she suspects is on the Skyhold now. Prepared to chase it alone, the party affirms they are committed to helping their new friend in need, just as she is helping them save Agnes. Speaking of, they learn from Agnes that the Skyhold is above Ansheim now, but the city is surrounded by an unnatural wind barrier. Seeking aid on the matter in Al Campus, where it's revealed Yu was a rare 6-star status, they run into the old astrologer from before, who turns out to be a legendary Professor Norzen here. As it also turns out, he is the one who summoned the massive sandstorm around Ansheim for the purpose of knocking down the Skyhold, regardless of the danger to the city or Agnes within. At an impasse, the party is forced to contend with Norzen, defeat him in order to quell the sandstorm and take his asterisk. After his defeat, Norzen then asks to recover the legendary compass of space and time, which he knows the Kaiser is seeking. However, a nearby cat turns out to be a spy for the strange cat girl they met earlier named Minette, who turns out to be working for the Kaiser himself. She powers up the cat to deal a fatal blow to Norzen and rushes off to get a head start. As Norzen dies, he urges them to get to the compass first, and as they check in on Kami-Izumi, he has already left, leaving them to a small task to deliver a letter to a pupil of his in Anchime named Go. Arriving in Anchime, they meet Go, who is working with the summoner Malfilia on summoning the legendary Amaterasu, and Idia must choose to either encourage him into being a swordmaster or summoner. Traveling now to the Harina Sea Caves, they spot the compass, but Minette is one step before them to claim it, and finishing her task of also killing you and friends. She fails to do so, but in distracting the party, Jan is able to grab the compass and flee. Catching up to him, Yu confronts him on betraying the Crystal Guard, and Jen points out that years ago, it was the Crystal Guard that betrayed everyone. When the Anti-Crystalists were overthrowing the Orthodoxy, Yu's house, which has led the Crystal Guard for generations, was one of the houses that surrendered when the Duchy opposed them in order to be spared. However, Jan's house, House Balestra, was one of those that opposed the surrender, and in turn his parents were killed and his house was erased from history. Since then, Jan has made it his personal mission to avenge his house, especially the House Geniolja. Anna interrupts them to retrieve Jan, who gets away in Skyhold as the party is then forced to back off when a sniper provides cover fire. As the next chapter begins, Jan's words hang heavy with you, but bolstered by his friends, his faith in his mission is renewed. Speaking with Agnes, it seems the Skyhold is above Mount Karka in the Eisen region now, but the distance seems far for the little boat. That night, Yu is approached by a mysterious patron who knows of his journey and trials, and informs him of a shortcut to the Eisen region without revealing himself. When sailing, they find the stranger's information to be true, and safely land in Eisen. While docking in a small port, they spot a weakened girl, and as Yu helps her up, she introduces herself as Yoko, Princess of Unohana, who was out here searching for her missing brother on her own. As the party continues their pursuit of the Skyhold, she insists on tagging along until she finds her brother, and Yu chooses to allow it, though soon finds pampering the princess to be a chore of its own. Still, Yoko was immediately smitten with Yu, inviting him to marry her, which infuriates Magnolia. Making it to Eisenberg, they run into Commander Goodman again, who was under siege by the sniper from before, the Hawkeye, Amy. She aims at Yu, who is saved by Magnolia at the last second, but Goodman is struck instead. Tiz calls for a retreat and has Goodman brought to Heartschild nearby for medical attention. Fortunately, they save him in time and notice a festival outside, which has been sponsored by a legendary confectioner. Unfortunately, he's sold out of his sweets by the time the party arrives, and so they enjoy the rest of the festival. Idia sets the scene for Yu and Magnolia to have an impromptu date, and Magnolia notes a flower girl and remarks that flowers are very rare and valuable on the moon. Later, Yoko has Yu get a flower for her, and he also gets one for Magnolia, but suddenly Magnolia is upset and confused, as on the moon, it's custom to give a flower when asking for a lady's hand in marriage. Yu is startled by the misunderstanding, and Magnolia is flustered and embarrassed at thinking this whole time Yu and her were engaged. Magnolia dashes away now, though Yoko is thoroughly amused by all of this. The next morning, Yu and Magnolia try and put last night behind them, but strangely enough, the entire town is suddenly deserted. Yu now notes the mysterious stranger who guided them across the sea has written a message for the group in his journal, yet they don't notice anyone following them to do so. More surprisingly, Yoko spots her missing brother here in town, Danzambro the swordsman. He offers to help them cross the bridge against Amy so that Yoko may return home, and stands alone against her as the party moves to flank Amy and catch her in close range. During the exchange, Yoko is injured as she takes a blow meant for her brother, and the group now duels with the Silver Sniper, taking her out and earning her Hawkeye asterisk. With the path to Unohana clear, Idia and group run into the Merchant Profitor and White Mage Holly, and settle a dispute about a fisherman selling his family's land to either turn it into an industrial dock, or let it stay in the family and preserve the natural scenery. Now arriving in Unohana, the girls take Yoko to soak in the healing hot springs that the country is known for. The guys relax as well, as after their bath, Yoko approaches Yu and asks him if he's heard of the Sword of the Brave, as her brother seeks to acquire it in order to become the next ruler of the kingdom. Slyly, she manages to coax it out of Yu, who warns her the blade is cursed, but with this new information, she leaves immediately. While chasing her, the party enters the old Grap Keep, finding the Black Mage Ominous Crow with his dragon Bahamut, and the Ranger Artemia acting as his bodyguard. When a cave-in occurs, it's up to Idia to decide if Ration should go to the strong who can get them out, or split evenly until help arrives. Racing to catch up to Yoko, they find her before the sentient Sword of the Brave, who asks if she's willing to pay the price to accept its power. Despite Yu's warning, she accepts, and as payment, the sword claims one of her brother's sword-wielding arms. Yu suddenly goes into shock, as he quickly recalls that he too once had a brother who was challenged to find the same sword in order to become head of House Geniolja. Yu found the sword, and his brother warned him the sword was really a demon, but when Yu claimed the sword anyway, it also took his brother's arm and vanished. With that, his brother could not become a knight and left House Genealogia forever, and this spurred Yu to join the Crystal Guard in his brother's stead. However, Yoko now laughs as she reveals Danzanbro to actually be an elaborate illusion, and herself to actually be a yokai who was specifically forcing Yu to confront his painful past. She then mocks the party, asking Tiz if finding a new little brother replaced the pain for letting his actual little brother die, and asking Magnolia if busting makes her feel good in light of all of her people dying. She then turns to Idia, about to expose her dark secret, but suddenly the Dark Knight Alternus dashes in to save her. She overpowers him easily and reads his thoughts, amused at the troubles in his life, and then chooses to revert back into Yoko, advising them to travel to the Temple of Fire if they wish to learn what the Kaiser's intent truly is. As Idia tends to Alternus' wounds, he eases her with news that her father, the Grand Marshal, is safe but is in no shape to fight. Though he wants to help them save Agnes, he says his current goal is to pursue Yoko, and thus leaves. Now investigating the Fire Temple, Tiz notes the crystal is outputting too much light, and like last time, if all 4 crystals get out of control, then this world links to another and a giant chasm between the 2 will open up. However, normally only a Vestal can commute with a crystal, and Agnes is the last one as she hasn't done anything. Noting the Kaiser has already visited 3 crystals, they know their next destination to be the Water Crystal in Florum. Jan now steps in to impede their progress, but they overpower him as he tumbles over the edge, and now seek to charter a new ship to Florum. Meanwhile, the Kaiser minds his mechanical hand, and Nikolai expresses concern over Jan not returning. The Patissier Angelo from before turns out to be in the employ of the Empire, and offers to deal with the group on his own. Back with the group, they enjoy a meal as they observe former Knights Captain Heinkel and Kunoichi Kikyo are now investigators, now solving a murder mystery with which Idia helps their nephew choose a career path for himself. Back in Unohana, the Lord there cannot help them with the ship for now but invites them to eat, especially since a famous confectioner is catering. Yu declines the sweets, and so the rest dig in, finding the desserts to literally die for, and thus what happened to the people in Heartschild. Angelo now comes in, claiming ownership of the attack and assaults the group, though they defeat him and claim his Patissier asterisk. Using the bathwaters to rid themselves of the debilitating cake effects, Yu and Magnolia stay an extra bit, and Yu takes the opportunity to apologize about the flower misunderstanding. Magnolia isn't bothered anymore since she was the one who jumped to a conclusion, though she admits she was thinking about accepting the proposal from him, but declines to share why for now. Suddenly, the mysterious stranger helping them chimes in, saying he's uncovered Unohana's secret, revealing the entire town to be a giant floating ship. The Lord is pleased to see the ship restored to function, and the first stop for Yu is using the healing water to save the people of Heartschild and then chase the Kaiser to the Temple of Water. Making it to Florum, they spot the skyhold overhead as they're shocked to witness a purple beam fire out and strike the skyhold, damaging it significantly. As the next chapter begins, Magnolia gets notified by her commander on the moon that the beam just now was a massive output of SP energy, the same energy Magnolia has in her time-altering hourglass. Meanwhile, the Kaiser is concerned who fired on the skyhold, as it does indeed deter their mission, as he sends another group down to investigate. As the group enters Florum, the land of radiant flowers, they find they're in time for the Sacred Flower Festival. Once devolved into a beauty pageant, the culture has changed, and now the festival winner is based on inner beauty and even men can compete. They inform the matriarch of the city about Skyhold's pursuit of the water crystal, and she sends their new young Vestal, Sylvie, with them to put up a shield around the crystal. Returning, they stay for the festival, only to see the Empire crashing the party, interrogating the people of Florum for information on who attacked them. Leading them is Geist the Bloody, an exorcist who delights in using his reversal powers to inflict pain continuously on his victims. He encroaches upon Idia, but Alternus intervenes again to save her, still bearing the ribbon Idia bandaged him with. Geist's ability to inflict pain means nothing to Alternus' Dark Knight powers that are fueled by pain, and so Geist retreats for now. The crowds of Florum cheer for the two, naming them the winners of the festival and saviors of the city, though a man in the crowd notes the Moonspeak Magnolia's toxin. He approaches them, introducing himself as Lotus of the Sagitta tribe, who lives in the forest of Florum, who make it their mission to battle the Balls, just as Magnolia and her people on the moon. On their way to meet the tribe, Idia is appointed as superintendent for an upcoming school in Florum, and she must choose between the co-ed school patroned by the monk Barris, or a separate gender school endorsed by the Valkyrie Einherja. Now making their way to the hidden sky village of the Sagitta, they meet the Elder, who says his people did once come from the moon ages ago, and have always held to the mission of defeating Balls, though this is the first encounter they've had in ages. They intend to kill the Ball within Skyhold regardless of whomever is within, and so urge them to save Agnes before that happens. They learn more about how the same SP they use to stop time is actually a recognized energy source harnessed from the flow of time, and the Sagitta harvest and store it. Along the way, they also meet Pelor III, descendant of the famous bard RECAPitation, and needs Idia's help in sorting out a dispute between the performer Praline and pirate Barbarossa, who argue about whether to remix a lost classic song or preserve it for the modern day. Exploring some old ruins of the Sagitta, they learn of a Professor Altair who created a compass that would allow one to leap to a specific point in time as a last resort in the war against Balls. However, one day the compass went missing, forcing the head of the base, Director Sagitta, to accept responsibility for the incident and repent by spending his life personally protecting Luxembourg. Meanwhile, Altair would die from disease in the newly founded kingdom of Eternia, pining for Vega on his deathbed. They see more records of the inventions and contributions of Altair, from rice cookers to flying battleships, of which they take note of as a means to reach the Skyhold. They ask Lotus about it, and he points out the giant cannon they use is all that's left of the mighty battleship Sagittarius. Yu investigates around town on his own that night, joined by Magnolia, and when they get a quiet moment together, Yu visits his commitment to the mission, and Magnolia points out how much Yu inspires her. She reveals that on the moon, when a man gives a woman a flower, it comes with a promise to protect them for the rest of their life, essentially a marriage proposal. She knows Yu didn't know that when he gave her the flower when they met, but she was still so encouraged by the action ever since. In turn, Yu admits Magnolia has been a source of strength for him as well. Suddenly, their mysterious stranger speaks up again, guiding them to the secret of how the village floats, but Yu tumbles over the edge. Magnolia leaps after him, and while falling, Yu thinks quickly, figures out the secret that is the stones outside the village, and lands them safely on some debris. Recovering and moving quickly, Yu confronts the mysterious stranger, who turns out to be Tiz with a strange voice. He introduces himself as Altair, who is inhabiting Tiz's body, and is about to reveal the Kaiser's true objective, though is interrupted as Geist follow them here and attacks. Altair sees Geist's reversals as localized time manipulation, and floods the area in SP energy, smothering Geist's abilities and allowing the party to defeat him and gain his Exorcist asterisk. Afterwards, Altair now reveals the Kaiser likely intends to use a space-time compass, powered up with a cosmic light that appears with the breach of dimensions, and activated to travel to the past and change history. For now, he bids them farewell, as he can only use Tiz's body at night when the moon is out. The next day, Tiz easily accepts having a second soul inside of him, though Agnes now chimes in, alerting everyone that the Skyhold is on its way to the Water Temple. When they arrive, they're shocked to find Agnes is the one breaking the seals of the crystals and overloading them, though under some strange possession. Anna shows up to collect Agnes and laughs at the plight of the party, and Nikolai shows up to expose the former Crystal Guard for the weak and corrupted group it was, while attempting to persuade Yu onto their side. Yu chooses now to stay by his new friends, and so the two clash, with the group victorious as Nikolai falls. The Kaiser notes the heavy losses sustained as Anna returns to him, though Jan now shows up alive after all. With all four crystals overloaded, Tiz recognizes the holy pillar that is set to tear down the boundary between worlds, though at this time their hot springs ship Rub-a-Dub has now become a flying vessel thanks to the efforts of Lotus and the Sagitta. Looking past the point of no return, Yu and crew now chase the Skyhold into the holy pillar as a new chapter unfolds. As Yu finally boards the Skyhold, Jan moves out to intercept, and the group finds the room Agnes was kept in now empty. Suddenly, Magnolia becomes possessed, attacking the group, claiming herself to be Revenant, the ghostly son of Geist who is mad at Idia for striking down his father. Possessing a nearby suit of armor, a full metal Revenant strikes, but is taken down by the party, who gains the Guardian asterisk and quells the son's soul with the final words of his father. Jan now steps in to cross blades with Yu specifically, and as the two former friends clash in this personal duel, Yu ends up the victor, now weeping over the fall of his friend, who admits there was some sincerity in their friendship before dying. With nothing between them and the Kaiser now, Yu reflects on his early failure, to which Magnolia encourages him with the words bravely second, an expression on the moon that simply means the courage to try again. Meanwhile, the Skyhold has now entered the Holy Pillar, and with Agnes in hand, the Kaiser notes the group now walking in on him a second too late, as he produces a space-time compass and warps away with its power. Anna now laughs as she points out anything that touches the Pillar of Light is warped to the next world, including the moon, as she directs the compass the Skyhold is on to redirect the Holy Pillar light directly into the moon. Shocked and in awe at the feat, the party now contends with Anna the Crystal Fairy, who succeeds in delaying the party. As they exit the Skyhold, they note the world seems eerily still, and Magnolia speaks out that it's been said that the moon brings out the night and day, not the other way around, and so with the moon gone, it's like the world is frozen in time. Tiz is frustrated they never got to even fight the Kaiser once, but Yu suddenly has an idea as he beseeches the player personally to bring everything back to the beginning. Resetting the game, things turn back to the initial duel with the Kaiser, and this time Yu uses the stored time and memories in their hourglass to call forth Bravely Second, bringing forth Magnolia, Idia, and Tiz back in time to deliver their custom coup de gravy as the next chapter begins. Finding and defeating a bewildered Kaiser, they defeat him, shattering his mask and revealing him to be Yu's long-lost brother, Denis. Meanwhile, Agnes is overjoyed to see Tiz alive and on his feet to her rescue. They recount their tale, which Agnes says feels familiar somehow, and that's likely because her memories were stored in the hourglass as well. However, just because the Kaiser is jailed, with everything reset, his army, the Skyhold, and the ball within are still around. Soon enough, Nikolai and Jan break the Kaiser out of jail, with Bella and Kahulin close behind to cover their escape. This time, Yu chooses to show mercy on the defeated, showing them the orthodoxy can change for the better for the problems caused in the past. With the world's nations now united against the Empire, they call all their allies forward now, with a plan to capture the Skyhold and protect Agnes from the Kaiser's capture again. Meanwhile, the Kaiser and his minions understand that they also have memories of the past, and so understand Yu knows their plans, now hurrying to get to the space-time compass first. Geist and Revenant get the jump on the group to get the compass, though as the group defeats them, they learn the regret Geist carries with him, as he knew Patient Zero of the Great Plague years ago and allowed her to infect the world. Regardless, Idie and her father point out what good such an oversight had produced too, and in doing so forgive and allow the two to live. While now answering a call from Kamiizumi, they visit the old grand ship and find alternates there assisting the poor who benefit from the social programs funded from the huge taxation in the bankrupting nation. However, they find former King Kamer, who seeks to lower the taxes mainly to benefit businesses so the nation can prosper as a whole, and Idia must settle the dispute. Meeting up with Kamiizumi, they see Amy and Angelo have realized each other's feelings and have left the Empire on their own to start life anew. To which, after a short spar, Yu agrees to sponsor the shop in Gathaladio. Finding a large congregation of cats, they figure Minette's spy network of cats is afoot, and so plant false information to lure the Skyhold to Sagitta. The plan works, and the Sagitta's cannon strikes true against the fort. Minette chooses to buy time for the Kaiser now, and failing against the group, Minette fears being abandoned again, though this time Kamiizumi comes in and chooses to show compassion and adopt Minette. At this time, Professor Norzen chimes in, saying he knew Minette's mother, who was a researcher under him during the Great Plague. When a second Great Plague was showing signs of emerging, her mother noted it did not affect cats and created a vaccine to save everyone, especially her daughter, though her life would be claimed as well, thus dying for the greater good. Still, he and the other students in El Campus used their magic to trap the Skyhold in a spell over the ocean to hold it for you and the others to enter now. As they infiltrate the fort, Altair now mentions the woman he used to love named Vega, and that they both came from the Celestial Realm. They were married too, and left as the Celestial Realm was on the verge of being wiped out. Altair realized too late Vega did not make it aboard the escape vessel in time with him, and urges the party now to leave no regrets of love later before the final battle, talking especially to Yu and Tiz. As the party moves on, Jan and Nikolai block their way, saying the Kaiser has already moved on, and though they remember the reconciliation they had in the past timeline, they will still stand in Yu's way. After the clash, Yu chooses not to kill his friends, and urges them to join him again in reforming the Crystal Guard into what they wanted it to be, and not the corruption it formerly was, reminding them that revenge is a savage cycle. As proof, his house and others relinquish control of the Crystal Guard to the Orthodoxy. Agnes gives her blessing, and other leaders around the world, including the Duchy, promise to aid in the reform as well. Moved by his actions, Nikolai reconsiders, and then reveals the location of the Kaiser, who is now in the tunnels beneath Gathaladio, the Genealogia Mausoleum. When he catches up to his brother, Denis exposes the whitewashed history of their house, something that drove him to his goal to use the space-time compass to go back in time to slay the founder of their house and stop the path of destruction wrought at the source. Understanding him, yet not in agreement, Yu faces his brother as their convictions clash, defeating him and gaining the Kaiser asterisk. Showing mercy again, Yu brings his brother home to recover and says that despite his crimes, he can make amends to a better future in this world. Agnes now takes him away as he surrenders, wishing to see his comrades in death, but instead she shows him his comrades who have chosen to live for a better future in this world. Despite his failings and crimes in the past, Agnes offers Denis a chance to have the Glan's Empire similarly join the other nations in having the courage to try again. Accepting the future seems bright, as both brothers are reunited, and at dinner, Yu minds that Magnolia may be leaving soon after her mission is done, and Tiz spends some overdue time with Agnes. As they talk privately, Denis has noticed Yu's feelings for Magnolia, and also encourages him to at least tell her his true feelings. Yu makes up his mind to do so, but suddenly they're shocked when the Holy Pillar suddenly bursts open, and Skyhold is now somehow heading towards it. Intercepting, they're surprised to find the Matriarch of Florum and the Vestaling Sylvie under control of Anna. Denis strikes Anna's pendant before she can power it up to take the moon away, and Anna reveals she was the one who sabotaged his destination into the future last time to make sure he didn't interfere with her plans. She now communicates with her true master, who authorizes her to use Diamante, the mightiest of the balls, and who destroyed Magnolia's people, to come forth from within the Skyhold's crystal and attack the party. The group is pushed to their limit in a tough battle against the nightmarish Pale Rider, only for Anna to mock them that Diamante is unbreakable and will continue to the extinction of all life on Luxendark. Zidane now steps forward to use the compass to sacrifice himself to bring Diamante to the far limit of the future and save this world today. As the next chapter begins in a familiar bedside manner, Magnolia's commander notes the defeat of Diamante and orders Magnolia to return as soon as she is able. Though in Kaldisla with old friends, Tiz and Idia struggle to remember anything about it until now, like there is a strange hole in their memory. Alternus now steps in, saying the same has happened to him, while also mentioning he was the one who brought them here from the Skyhold to safety. Idia thanks him with a rare blush, and Alternus continues that for all this, the Yokai Yoko is why, telling them to return to the Grand Marshal and Pope Agnes for the next move. Visiting the king briefly, Tiz is greeted royally, and even sees Egla's doing well for himself as junior captain, though he reports a large monster attack nearby. Tiz offers to investigate, though at the same time, Idia is confronted by her father on her readiness to lead a nation. Helping her with this, her father gives his approval for her maturity, and after a duel, imparts the Templar Asterisk. More importantly, Idia is passed on the title of Grand Marshal, ruler and authority of Eternia, as he himself looks forward to a well-earned retirement. Now exploring the monster report, they are shocked to find a new ball, somehow more powerful than even Diamante, adorned like an undead bride, though managed to bust it despite it somehow slipping past the moon's security measures. Checking in on the king, they see Agnes and Alternus there speaking how strange the people within the kingdom likewise forgot the rest of the world in isolation, complicated more by the mysterious appearance of balls. Altair steps in, now confirming what he's always suspected, and that is that balls are the manifestations of the unresolved feelings of his beloved Vega, born from their shared memories, but even he is unsure how they start as feelings and end up as weapons of mass destruction. He suspects the missing link may lie with Anna and suggests they seek her out. Meanwhile, we see Anna before the Great Chasm the Holy Pillar once created, and Anna gleefully celebrating how she can create endless ball now with this link to the Celestial Realm. Back with the party, they travel to the Vampire Castle, and within find the signature Dark Knight helm of Alternus within. Further within, they find the paintings now reveal the past of Yoko who appears before them, admitting this castle was formerly called the Hall of Truth, despite how hard some truths are to face. Her shrine was once raided by a man who sought her treasure hoard and sealed her within the body of a young girl he brought along, who became Patient Zero for the Great Plague. As they learned before, Geist was asked of the church to cure her, but it was disease and not spirits that availed her. The man who raided the shrine and essentially started the plague incidentally was none other than Yu's own father, something confirmed by the writings left behind by his father. Learning of his folly quickly, his father had nearly his entire fleet poisoned and killed, and himself returned to Gathalodia with all the treasure, thus gaining great favor from the church. Afterwards at the time, Brave Lee was a young priest who urged the elders to use the power of the crystals to treat the sick, but was denied, thus letting his home village be quarantined and die, and causing him to resign from the church and lead his revolution later, beginning with asking Norzin to investigate the origins of the plague. Norzin, as well as all researchers, worked furiously and sacrificed everything to stave off the second pandemic, even using himself as a test subject. Eventually, Minette's mother saw the immunity in cats and learned how to transfer the antibodies to Minette to survive the disease and create a vaccine. As the authority of the church was crumbling at the same time as Templar Brave's uprising, Yu's father issued the order to disband the Crystal Guard in order to save his own house and those he kept close, while fighting those that sought to keep the Crystal Guard intact like Jan's former house, with soldiers like Nikolai who were horrified at the atrocities committed. By killing off the other houses, House Geniolja consolidated power to form its own army, and used it to defeat unemployed soldiers who had turned to banditry, thus gaining favor with smaller villages. They also killed Bella's family on charge of witchcraft and starting the plague, thus earning even more favor from the church. Ironically, Yu's father would die from a common illness afterwards. Now, Yoko speaks of herself, who wishes simply to change the world and help lift it into a higher plane. Now in her true form, she continues from where she left off, now analyzing the secrets of Idia, who despite her overt motivations, was also seeking approval from her father when she ran off years ago, and feels loneliness by everyone having companions around her except for her. In truth, Idia did have her heart set on someone, but he left her behind, and that man was Ringabel, who oddly on cue, now enters the scene in his Dark Knight armor. In fact, it really was him, not the Alternus of this world, who was actually there to save her the many times before. With tears of joy, she runs into his arms, and seeing his old friend Tiz again, he urges his companions to aid him in chasing down Yoko. He explains he is part of the Plains Wardens now, here to protect the multitude of dimensions from threats like Yoko, an S-class villain who has reveled in creating chaos and torturing people for centuries. With Ringabella's support and backup, the group now confronts Yoko, defeat and strip her of her asterisk, and learn the final truth. As it turns out, Yoko met two travelers from another world, and in a laboratory above their ship, a deadly disease became mixed with one from Luxembourg, resulting in a potential plague that would kill everyone in the world. So, Yoko took the disease within herself and asked to be sealed away to help save the world. It wasn't until thousands of years later that the founder of the Genealogy House arrived and gave her hope that one of his line would find a cure for her. Later was when Yu's father would come by, seal Yoko inside of a girl in hopes of curing Yoko as promised, but ended up causing the Great Plague instead. She points out that a lot of good things actually happened because of these events too, so it's not all bad, though with that she disappears. Ringabel now also bids farewell to the group after their brief reunion in a teary-eyed Idia, but leaves them with the mission of destroying deadly sin beasts now free in the world since Yoko has left. Now confronting Anna at the Great Chasm, the group learns Anna doesn't create the balls, only transports them here, while her true master, Lord Providence of the Celestial Realm, actually creates them. Before he makes his entrance, it was he who sent the balls to cleanse the world first, prioritizing the destruction of the moon since they put up the biggest fight to repel the monsters. She learns having to deal with the aftermath of her little sister's plans in the first game, but also finding someone here who wanted to summon the Holy Pillar. Amused at the struggles of the party, she ascends into a larger form to deal with the party before her master descends, to which Tiz questions what fairies are anyway. She explains fairies are born from the will of the gods to serve them, and thanks them for saving the Celestial Realm from Aerie and Ouroboros from the first game. As they defeat Anna, Altair comes out to say Providence likely has control of Vega, but this Great Chasm is the portal they need to invade the Celestial Realm and defeat Providence before he destroys their world. Seeking the aid of the player personally, the black mists blocking their way are cleared and together the group enters the Celestial Realms. Beyond, they find a pathway filled with images of Vega's memories, as Altair explains them. For example, one such image is when Altair first met Vega at a ski resort and produced a flower to her, and another when, almost by fate, he was transferred to the same research facility she worked at for the next year. Also, sharing an umbrella in the rain as well as attending a festival together coyly parallels Yu and Magnolia's experiences together. He continues on how they work together on sharing dreams and hypothesis, and how after much success and toil, he asked her to marry him, even without a wedding ring, and she accepted. He eventually saved up for one and gave it to her right before he traveled to Luxembourg and was separated from her ever since. Despite that, he was glad to be able to bravely default on the expectations of others and encourages them to have the courage to defy the world as well. Arriving at an elaborate altar, Altair is amazed to find the soul of Vega still here. She asks why Altair left her and reveals that after he disappeared, she was lied to about where to find him, led into a trap, and killed. Suddenly, Providence appears, pleased at the reveal of such despairing news. Feeding on her negative emotions, he wanted to eliminate her lingering hope and love for Altair, and so set his sights on destroying Luxembourg to that end. The group declares their will to fight and deny this false god, and wishing to crush the light before him, Providence attacks the group. As he tries to feed himself more power from Vega's despair, Altair counters by feeding her hope, and to save her and poison the strength of Providence at the same time. The light overpowers the dark, and love saves the day, as the souls of Altair and Vega are reunited, and Luxembourg seems safe at last. However, just as they turn to leave, Providence descends in its true form, unbound by Vega, and Tiz, awakened warrior of light, Idia, the new Grand Marshal of Eternia, Yu, noble knight and captain of the Crystal Guard, and Magnolia, survival of the moon and Ball exterminator, unite in friendship to confront the Dark Lord. Curiously, Providence points out the group isn't fighting of their own free will, but by the whims of another influence, the player himself. Speaking to the player, Providence declares sovereignty and moves to delete the save progress of the entire game to win, but Yu cuts past the fourth wall to deliver hope, saying the player has only encouraged, not controlled, and is proud to fight for them too. Going to the title screen to collect a new message for the player, Yu takes the literal SP now present and uses it to power up, as the entire ensemble of allies, former foes, and the bonds forged come forth to lend aid in denying the will of the false god. With the fight now over, Altair and Vega are reunited, and there are no more balls. Things seem better as they prepare to head home, but suddenly Tiz collapses again. As he suspected, Altair's soul was keeping him alive, and he accepts his early demise despite all the things he wanted to do in life. Unexpectedly, the mysterious adventurer who has been with them in the background since the first game approaches and thanks them for reuniting her friends Altair and Vega. She would pay them back now and reminds them that a soul is simply an embodiment of wishes, dreams, and desires, as such in the case of Altair and Vega. She urges them to use the hourglass on hand to fill Tiz with the power of dreams, but it seems low on power. Borrowing it, the adventurer opens a portal to the past and hands it to the party right before they went to fight Providence, and by now expects it to be full of the hopes, dreams, and wishes of them and everyone whose lives they touched. The hourglass ends up in the hands of Agnes, who hurries over to Tiz as the adventurer, named Deneb, bids them farewell. As the game ends, we see the lives of many Asterisk wielders who have moved onward with renewed hope as Agnes pours the energy from the hourglass into Tiz and his soul is finally restored for good this time. For Idia, the path as Grand Marshal is filled with trials, though this world's alternist is always there to help her with her new duties, like he had with her father. For Tiz, he returns home to live his quiet life, and as Agnes' duties as Pope are completed after the treaty, and with a new Vestal in training, she approaches him telling him she wishes to abandon the name of Liege for the name Aurier instead, and live her life as his wife. For Magnolia, she returns to her ship and fixes it up, preparing to leave for the moon. However, Yu dashes after her, frustrated he never got to tell her his true feelings. As it turns out, she never left just yet at all, and now hears him out as he confesses his love for her, and in return, she tells him her true name, something done on the moon only with those who are married. As the credits thank you as the player, we now see the moon and hear Ringabel speak with the Vice President, confirming the demonic Sword of the Brave as the third missing key that they seek. Bravely 2nd End Layer has enjoyed the success of selling over 700,000 copies worldwide. This recapitation was chosen by Gavin. Thank you for supporting the show as a patron, you really help me out. If you would like to support the show yourself, please follow the Patreon link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next battlefield.